a beautiful question we have, Richard. And that question is enlightenment the goal of spiritual practice?
Would seem to be, wouldn't it? There's a curious thing about spiritual practice in its relationship between the seeker or the practitioner and the teacher or the master, and that is, whatever the seeker brings, the teacher refutes. Whatever they bring. If you were to come and say, is enlightenment the goal? Well, the assumption is enlightenment is the goal, and you say it isn't the goal. If you were to come and say it's not the goal, you'd say, well, it is the goal. And the reason for this is that there's no words that can explain either the spiritual or any apparent goal of the spiritual enlightenment or spiritual illumination itself. You might ask, which would be another question, why do you speak about it then? Why do you write about it then? Why do you verbally try to communicate it then? Which is perhaps another question. But there's no way of expressing something which is everything and nothing, and for which words will never have any kind of accurate description whatsoever. There's nothing you can say about the truly spiritual or about enlightenment, because enlightenment is all and everything. Everything participates in enlightenment, even arising forms and appearances, even the source of those arising forms and experiences and events and circumstances. There is nothing outside the apparent field of enlightenment itself. So this also segues into a matter of the temporal, which is to say, in spirituality, there's nothing to attain. It's rather the clearing away of all dissatisfaction and all striving and all sense of lack, or any kind of lack of confidence that you don't have everything you need in abundance already. Which isn't quite the same as something like the law of attraction or visualization in order to manifest objects of the desire or the fear body, for example. It is rather to say that my individual self is merely a partial perspective. I, as a separate and identified self, take a certain perspective on the totality, whereas in truth, I am all. Do you follow? In truth, I am the thing, the very thing that I am seeing. So the very thing that I'm seeking, or the very thing that I have a presumption that is not myself, that's a fallacy. That's a spiritual error, if you will. Spirituality doesn't have a goal as such. Enlightenment is a given. Enlightenment just is. When I, as an individual self, reside in my just isness, or perhaps better put, my beingness, or my true nature, or my true self, then instantly I realize oneness with enlightenment. In this sense, then, there are no individuals because there are no individual enlightened beings, in the sense that my separate identity is the price I pay for enlightenment, or the realization or the deep understanding of my true nature. So how can you strive or have a goal for something that already is the case? It's a mental construct. It's a philosophical, a psychological presumption, much the same as I wake up in the morning and I get up and I make tea and I move through my day and then I return to the bed and so on. All of these are presumptions. The spiritually minded person may not experience any of those things in the same way as the separate individual, the person identified with the ego self, would experience those events as successive activities through their day, perhaps not enlightened at all, perhaps merely mundane tasks without any significance or meaning, without any light in them. But for the spiritually inclined person, when you breathe in light. You're enlightened in this miracle of the present moment, in this exchange with everything apparently not you, with everything apparently you. Now, there isn't anything that is not you. It's just where you place yourself. If you place yourself at a distance from enlightenment, you would have to strive for enlightenment. You would have to have a spiritual discipline or practice that somehow brought you to enlightenment, whereby you attain some kind of spiritual state. But right at the beginning of spiritual practice, these kinds of aspirations are things to shed. Not deeply in, there's much more subtle holdings, much more subtle attachments to work with during spiritual discipline sadhana itself. But you don't enter in truly to spiritual discipline with a sense of I want something, even if it's the time hallowed goal of enlightenment itself. There's nothing to satisfy your desire body in true spiritual practice. There's nothing you need, nothing you want, nothing you lack, including enlightenment. Because everything already is enlightened. There is nothing in reality that doesn't participate in enlightenment. It's all enlightenment. So how can you strive for something you breathe in every day, that pumps through your veins, that's beneath your feet, that's above your head, that you hold in your hands already?